Hi, everyone. Welcome to another evening with Gina. This is Heather with the Old Schoolhouse, and I am here with Gina Soares. She's one of the publishers of the Old Schoolhouse magazine. And we have been doing these evening with Gina's for the past few months, and I hope that you've been able to join us. If not, you can watch the replays both on YouTube or in Facebook videos on the Old Schoolhouse Facebook page. And if you have any ideas or suggestions or anything you want to ask Gina or you want her to talk about, leave it in the comments. Let us know what you want to talk about because we would love to explore that with you. And we're here to encourage, equip, and help you. So just let us know what you want to hear. And tonight, I am so excited to introduce Gina Soares, again, publisher of the Old Schoolhouse magazine. Thank you so much for joining me tonight, Gina.
Hey, it's good to be here. I've got my phones and all my devices are off except for one in my phone, and my it keeps ringing because my family constantly calls me. So forgive me for that. I've got some beeping in, but it's good to be
No
here. How are
problem.
you?
I am doing great. Well, I'm so excited tonight. The theme is Moms Who Homeschool Need to Hear This. And like we were talking before the interview, there are so many new homeschool moms who are or not homeschool moms, people who have never homeschooled, who are ready to take the plunge. And it's funny because there was a time right in 2020 when so many people were homeschooling, but it didn't necessarily stick with everyone. But I think now that people went back to the school system, they're realizing, okay, it isn't back to normal. This isn't what we want for our kids anymore. We're ready to homeschool for real now. So, what kind of advice, Gina, would you give to these types of moms who are ready to homeschool? They're ready to take out their kids. Maybe their kids are older, they've never done this before. What advice would you have for them?
Yeah, well, and we're seeing the same thing as well. There are a lot of people who they had to stop their public school experience with their kids because of COVID. And they tried for a while. We saw that a lot with people joining in with Zoom and all the various creative ways that, school administrators and teachers were trying to continue those classes, the coursework, somehow live, with a bunch of kids at once, and you see them all on the screen. And I heard so many funny stories about kids who were, they were you'd have little siblings in the background that would start, pulling their clothes off and to jump into the tub and just crazy stuff. And so that was, it definitely made the rounds. It didn't work though. It failed. And so a lot of families have said this is not working, and they, and bless their hearts, they really put everything into it. They showed up to the Zoom meetings. They tried to help their kids with the homework, and they found themselves, these moms, they found themselves actually really helping the kids with the homework, really having to go over the lesson plans, spending more time maybe than they ever had in the past. Because before, with your kids being at public school, you have a teacher all day long spending all those hours with them, and the kids are getting some work done. They're coming home with their papers that are finished because they did them at school. And now all of a sudden everything changed where they have to be at home. They were being homeschooled, except they were still tied to the public school, and which is why they had to sign in with their Zoom classes at 9 a.m. in the mornings and kind of sit there throughout the day, and all the antics going on in the background and the funny stuff, and the teachers, and a lot of other stuff happened that wasn't so funny though, where I heard stories, news articles where teachers would see things in the background and start calling CPS, or just different things, parents calling CPS on other parents because they could see those kids in the background, and maybe they thought the home life wasn't what it should be, or whatever. So it was a whole new thing. It was very strange. But the cool thing is that some of these parents, they actually kind of an epiphany happened in their minds as they did this experiment that the public schools, that everybody was just trying to do together to make work somehow, hoping that it would work, which again, it really didn't. They're talking about how so many kids are really needing to just repeat the year. They need to just go back and repeat it because it didn't work. But some of these parents, they realized, the light bulb went off, and they said to themselves, I'm already doing it. Here I am. I've been doing it all year long. My kids are technically homeschooled. And it was kind of a bridge for some, because they could see that, okay, I survived. My kid has been home with me all day long, and we all survived this thing. In fact, it's kind of, in some ways, kind of neat because I'm getting to know my kid and my kid is getting to know me, and we're discovering that we have things in common perhaps, and we're painting together or we're doing projects together, things we never would have done if, little Johnny or little Sally was off at school all day. And they started to realize the biggest thing, I think, was that knowing of their child. They when you don't have something, you may not know that you're missing it. And as they spent time with their children, they realized, oh my goodness, I want to be with this kid. This is why I had this child. I love this child and I'm enjoying being with this child. And so as they continued to kind of use the lesson plans that the Zoom meetings were giving them to do, and they were helping their children along and doing the best they could, I guess it has worked out for many as a bridge where they decided to make that leap and say, you know what, I can just do this. I really don't need the Zoom meetings or the school curriculum. And perhaps they had friends or family who were also already homeschooling, and a quick phone call to any of them, they would find out that, wow, I can purchase curriculum. I can go to the library. There's so many things for homeschoolers that are out there. That networking that happens between homeschool families is vast and it's beautiful. And so we at the magazine have been just astonished and amazed and excited to see so many families cut the ties with that public school and just bring their kids home where they belong. So as far as advice goes, I would just say get on the phone with your friends who know how to homeschool, who've been homeschooling for a while. There's Google. There's so many ways that you can learn about basic knowledge about homeschooling and how to get started. If you go to tryhomeschooling.com, get a free info pack. Everything is free, and just even bits of curriculum is included, and all kinds of stuff about the laws, the legalities. It's legal in all 50 states. So much information. You'll feel like you're drinking from a fire hydrant because there is a world of information just waiting for you. And guess what? The people that are homeschooling, they want you to join this big
Yes.
movement, which has doubled. It's more than doubled over the last 2 years. And they're very welcoming. Homeschool moms, they love to welcome other new homeschool moms into their
Mhm.
midst. So jump in.
That's right. And that's exactly what I wanted to talk about with the theme Moms Who Homeschool Need to Hear This. This is what I really wanted to touch on is those who have been homeschooling, we need you. We need you to be the light, to be the salt, to be the ones that can encourage these ones coming on because there are so many people that are coming on. So be prepared.
Mhm.
You're going to be getting those phone calls. It's going to be happening. So I would love to even just throw a question out there for anyone watching right now. Um, I'm going to ask Gina the same question, but I want you, the audience, to answer too. Well, I did ask her the question. What advice would you give to a new homeschooling mom? Please put your answer in the comments, what you would say, because I want you, the listener, to be thinking about it so you can be helping those. So when they do call you, they do message you on Facebook, you're there, you're ready, you're prepared, and I'm sure you already are. You're already super excited. But what advice would you give them? I would love to hear what you have to say. Um, and before we get to those comments, I'm going to give you a chance to leave those comments. Gina, how do you think we can retrain our minds from former educational thought patterns if we grew up going to a public school, even a private school, the classroom setting? How can we change our mindset?
Yeah, that is a super question, and it is a question that we get a lot. Even moms who have been homeschooling a while, they have to catch themselves sometimes. We all do. We have to catch ourselves and say, "Stop, stop it. You're doing it again." We have to tell ourselves that because it is almost like a brainwashing. When you grow up, you're starting at least 5 years old, sometimes younger if you went to preschool. You have been from the very, very beginning been trained that this is how schooling works. This is how education is supposed to be. You go from one subject to the next. You only have a certain amount of time that you spend on each subject. In the middle of that, there's a recess, there's a lunch, there's another recess. There may be a little art program. Um, it's kind of the same thing over and over. And when you do that year after year, and you're going from one subject to the next, and perhaps a child is so excited about a particular subject, a topic that they're learning about, and they're trying to finish, maybe they're in art class and they're trying to finish, and they're just so inspired, and they've put some time in at night, perhaps with the history behind this art, and they've been sketching and they're wanting to finish, and then the bell rings. And particularly in high school, and when you're a little kid, you're being moved throughout the day. You're still learning what inspires you. You're still learning what your passions, your future passions are going to be. But when you get into high school, you are so trained by that time that you just know the bell is going to ring. I need to get up and leave this classroom and go to another classroom. And I know what classroom that is. And I'm going to sit down and pull out that homework, and I'm going to completely stop what I was doing. So if they're in the middle of that art project, that sketch, that beautiful painting, it's too bad. You need to put it away and you need to stop. And I think it is so bad for the brain. I don't even see how that can be good for a developing mind.
Wow.
And when a person is, well, think about yourself as an adult. When you go after a particular passion, something new that you really want to learn about, you've been researching it for hours and you're learning, and maybe people recognize you, or they're starting to recognize you as an expert in this field, and you just can't stop. You're so excited to learn it. You love to learn. I think that's where a lot of students lose that. They lose that love of learning because it's interrupted so much. And we as homeschool moms, you rewind back several years or several decades when you were in school, when you were in high school, that was just the way it was. And so as a result, moms try to bring that mindset over into their homeschooling. So a brand new mom, I love to tell them from the very beginning, don't you get this now, learn this early if you can, is to make sure that you're not trying to replicate that public school experience. That's not even normal learning. When you love to learn, when you are learning something and you're in the middle of something, you may not want to stop for 4 hours. I've known many homeschool families who perhaps will spend a full day, the whole day, doing just that particular subject, that particular topic. They're allowing their child to just go in deep, and they're getting their parents involved, their siblings involved, their grandparents involved, or whomever, or perhaps just by themselves. They are pursuing a musical instrument, or they are pursuing a business because they're entrepreneurial minded. They have time, they have that opportunity to actually pursue those passions if they have those hours outside of a facility, just they're at home where they're relaxed and comfortable and can pursue those passions. And I guess as a new homeschool mom, it would be one of the first things I'd want to really impress upon their hearts, which is do not follow that public school system. Don't follow it. It's not a good model. It is a model which disrupts. It takes away from creativity of a child. It All children are not the same. They're not learning at the same rate. They need their own space and their own time. They're unique. I just find it so disrespectful, to be quite honest, to just try to put all these children in one spot and expect them to do the same thing in the same time period and then move on and then start over again. So if a mom can learn that early on, and even if she doesn't learn it until later, better late than never, get that get try to get that model as far away from your homeschool as possible. And also, I think the reason they do it, and I'll end this part with this, is that they feel like they're very afraid, like, well, if I'm not doing it like those trained teachers are doing it, then I'm not doing it right. And I'm not a professional and I need to be just like the professionals. So I'm going to try to copy them. And that is just all wrong, all wrong. Don't even go down that road, because if that's the case, put them back in public school, and I would never advise anybody to do that. You are the one who God has placed those children in your care, and you can train them and you can teach them, and you are the professional. You're the professional over your child. And so to try to copy some other system, and I don't blame anybody for doing that, because it's natural. We all do that from time to time, but we have to not, because again, I feel like parents, they're concerned with, well, but what if I get in trouble? What if I'm just not doing this right and somebody sees me,
Mhm.
I'm outside all day and they see, there could be a
Yeah.
thousand reasons for people to become afraid
Yeah.
or to get intimidated, but you shouldn't be. Just be confident. Walk
Yeah.
confidently and homeschool your own way.
That's a good point. I think a lot of it is fear of what other people think, especially if you're first starting out. Um, and there could be opposition with family or friends. And I just
Mhm.
laughed when you said that about being afraid, that you're doing it wrong. I remember one time somebody told me that they knew a family um, who they had all their own school uniform and they had their time of day that they did their school. And it was, I mean, it was basically like they had a private school in their home. And she was like trying to encourage, she didn't homeschool, but she was trying to encourage me to do that.
Mm,
And, I knew that wasn't right, but then
no.
in my mind, I'm thinking, "Am I doing it wrong?" So I'm trying to think of listening to this advice that you're giving, and if I would have received this back when I first started, I still feel like I would be thinking, "But how do I fill in those gaps? How are they gonna pass those tests? How would you encourage somebody, who is just getting started to practically take this to focus on the child's interest, but also rest assured that your kids are going to do fine if your state requires end of the year testing."
Yes, and some states do. Every state has its own laws, and so it's important to be up on that. You wanna definitely know where you stand. Um, and it's also important to be balanced. Your kids need to pursue their passions, and they need that time. They need that quantity time, that quality and quantity time to be able to figure out what they love and what they wanna do, what they wanna pursue. These are very important things, but naturally, you have to be a balanced homeschool. You've got to teach the 3 R's, and I think that comes pretty natural. I think that's kind of understood. It's part of it's the academics is a big part of homeschooling. We look at it like, we actually feel like it's character first. It's actually character and discipleship, discipling your child, and the academics follow after that. You get both, you get all of
Mm.
it, but then at least you're working with a child that is hopefully their character is developing, they're becoming more like Christ, and it actually is so good because it helps the relationship between you and your child. They are learning to be followers of the Lord, and as a result, they're learning the fruits of the Holy Spirit. They're learning to be godly. They're learning about the Lord, and so if you have that as well as pursuing their passions, and of course you've got there's a few hours in the day where they're doing whatever academics. I think it comes pretty natural. I think a lot of parents too, though, they get intimidated, whether they're at the beginning of the journey or even all the way up to the end when they're trying to do high school. I think the biggest advice I could give is to make sure that you are part of a support network, whether you're in classical conversations or whether you're in certainly whatever state group, whatever. There's a state board. Almost every single state has one. There's a leadership board of each state. So and some have bigger ones or maybe better ones or more detailed ones than others, but find out about your state homeschool board. That would be very, very important place to start because you want to become a member of whatever that is. Plug in to that group because then you're going to have friends and you're going to have there's leaders, there's all kinds of people that can give you advice. And for example, if your child is starting high school and you don't really know how the credits are supposed to work, well, how many credits are they supposed to have for language arts and how many for math or history? There are so many people that would love to sit down and talk with you and help you, and your state board is probably the
Right.
place to start. So very, very important. Make sure that you are plugged into your state association and just Google that. So if you're in Virginia, it's actually called HEAV. You would just Google for your state. You would just Google something like Virginia Homeschool State Organization, Missouri Homeschool State Organization, like that. And you're going to get all kinds of stuff. And then plug in. Make sure that you are as plugged in as you can be and getting all the advice you can. And I think that part will be the easiest part, figuring out the academics, because it's pretty straightforward. It's the mechanics. To me, the more interesting part or the more sometimes more challenging parts are helping your child to figure out those passions and giving them that time and making sure that relationship and that discipleship is happening.
Right. That's really good advice. And we also have a place on the website for at the Old Schoolhouse magazine that has a list on schoolhouseconnect.com for support groups in every state. There's even some local groups there. So if you want to check that out, you can head over there. And again, to the moms who already are homeschooling, these are great resources. You can share your experience. And then what you don't know, just direct them to the the state board, like Gina said. And I would love to go back and mention some of the advice that I asked about. Deborah uh, suggested for new homeschool moms that she would tell them to search the scriptures for the
Mhm.
real reasons why you have your children home. which you
Mhm.
had mentioned as well. Go over those with your children the first week of school and put them on your walls or chalkboards. I love that. Would you like to elaborate on that, Gina?
Yes, she is so correct. Deborah Wooler is our senior editor for a reason, a good reason, and she's right. That is so important to know your why. Why are you homeschooling? Why have you chosen to bring your kids home? Is it because maybe your parents homeschooled you, and so you're a second generation homeschooler? Is it perhaps because of COVID and what happened, and now you've used this as a bridge because you realize you can do this as well as the public schools can, maybe better, and your child, by the way, is begging you, please, I just want to stay home. We can do this at home. Or is it because perhaps you have been reading the scriptures and realizing that there are some real strong commands that we are to train up our children, we are to disciple them, we're supposed to be talking with them all the time and bringing them up. We have this little short window of time, their childhood, and it goes very, very quickly. And we don't want regrets. We don't want to look back later and say, what if, and why didn't I? The Lord is very gracious, and he has a way of just making all things beautiful and right, and he does fill the holes. But I do think that if are convicted by the Holy Spirit, we should listen, and we should act, and again, knowing the why. And so, like Deborah said, write it down. Sit down with your children, discuss it with them, find out if it's also their why. Do they agree? If not, maybe there's some conversations that should happen, and some activities together, and relationship is going to fix a lot of that. If perhaps you've brought a child home from school that doesn't want to come home, and that does happen. But it's interesting, we've heard plenty of stories where those kids give it a couple of years, or perhaps after graduation, they look back and they say, thank you, mom. Oh, I'm so glad, because yeah, I wanted to go back to school, but here's the bad reasons why. I loved my sin. I enjoyed my sin that I was involved in, or I um I didn't know the Lord, and now I do. And some of these kids are now homeschooling their children. It's second generation, and we see that all the time. We talk to
Wow.
people at conventions and hear those stories, and it's really, really neat. So she's right. Know your why.
Wow, that's powerful. Kristen, she mentioned, well, she wants to encourage new homeschool moms to remember that homeschools don't always look like they do on Pinterest or Instagram. Every homeschool is unique. There is definitely that pressure. Wouldn't you agree, Gina? Do you have any comments about this?
Oh, amen. Yes, and that's really good, because you are unique. You're unique, and your children are unique, and your every home is unique. I mean, people have been very creative. I don't know if you've ever heard of car schooling. Car schooling is a thing, and people who actually take campers too. Really, that's a bigger thing. People who love to be on the road, and perhaps they are able to work remotely from their laptops or whatever, and they'll just take off for a year and they'll homeschool. So what does their schoolroom look like? And are they any better or any worse than someone else? No, it has to do with those conversations. It has to do with the the heart talks that we're having with our children. It has to do with the time being spent, and the academics being covered, and the new passions being discovered and pursued. And that's what a homeschool looks like. Anybody can go in and kind of create something beautiful and or nice, but if you never use it, or if you rarely use it, pictures, you just can't you can't judge. You can't judge anything based on pictures, that's for sure. Or even meeting somebody. You really
Yeah.
it's probably a good idea to stay away from that anyway. But it is neat to I do enjoy going on Instagram or on Pinterest and seeing the different schoolrooms, because it gives me ideas. And I think that's the only reason a homeschool mom should even be perusing those kind of pictures, is just to get those ideas, and maybe
Mhm.
to even to have a sense of maybe something resonates, or whatever. But as far as trying to find a way to copy, don't do it. Do your own, and get your kids ideas and get their advice. Hey, what do you want? How should we decorate? How should we create this room? Or and also too, there's a lot of families that they do so well. They do so well. Their kids end up going to college and becoming doctors and lawyers and pharmacists. And you ask them, well, what was your school room like? And they say, well, we just laid on the couch and did our homework. We found a place on the floor, got on our tummies and opened up our books, or we rolled around out on the trampoline and did our work out there. Or, oh, I had a tree house. I just went up and did my work up there. You know, how do you measure success? I guess the
Right.
proof is in the pudding. And in my opinion, the way you measure it anyway is what kind of adult did they turn out to be? Are they following after Christ? Did they love the Lord? That's the more important thing to be looking at.
Wow, that's a really good point. And, I want to touch on um, another resource that homeschool moms are going to be having very shortly. And Gina, I would hope that you could make this announcement and let everybody know. I'm sure people have heard about this documentary, but there's some exciting news about the documentary and how you're going to be involved in promoting it. So if you could share about what's going to be happening June 7th.
Yeah, absolutely. June 7th, 2 p.m. in the afternoon. Paul and I are going to be interviewing Kirk Cameron. So we'll actually have him live, and his new film is being released. It's called Homeschool Awakening, and I think it's going to be really good. It's going to be kind of a first step. It's interesting because right now, today, I was noticing that his name, Kirk Cameron, is trending in on Twitter and in other social media platforms because, and it's negative. It's all negative. People are just mad as can be. How dare he, a celebrity, a Hollywood type, get out there and say anything about the public school agenda, but that is what he is called to do. He feels led by the Lord to share, and he has homeschooled his kids, and he's a follower of Christ, and he has something to say about homeschooling, and he has something to say about the public schools and what's really going on inside them, and just the indoctrination. And I think that he doesn't get super preachy or deep with this first film that's coming out. He primarily is talking with several people who, including Todd Wilson, who's one of our authors, our columnists.
Oh,
He's
wow.
meeting with families and saying, "So tell us your story. Tell us how it has worked for you." And I think that's going to be very inspiring and very encouraging. Kirk Cameron has a very big audience. He already does he has since he was a kid. He's a child star, and a lot of people like him. So if he goes out there with a message, by default, he's already going to have people who are just curious, who want to hear what he has to say. And that's a powerful position to be in. God can really, boy, if you allow the Lord to use you in something like that, it can be life changing. And so who knows? My prayer is that many people who maybe never really thought about homeschooling, or maybe they heard about it, but really thought to themselves, that's not for me. I could never do it. Perhaps they just don't know enough about it. And when they see this film, which they will because he's in it and they like him, they're a fan for whatever, um,
Right.
they're going to be there. There will be a number of people. There will be a percentage that are going to say, "I'm doing it. I'm doing it." So I'm excited
Wow.
about that. We're going to have a great, great conversation next week.
I am so excited. So make sure you head over. If you're watching on YouTube, head over to the Old Schoolhouse Magazine Facebook page, and there is an event over there, and you can RSVP, and you can share it with your friends and let them know. We're expecting a great turnout, and I'm really excited. And there's even going to be an opportunity to ask questions. So it's possible Kirk Cameron will answer your question. So definitely
Mhm.
go and definitely tell people that you um, are trying to encourage to enter homeschooling because, like you said, Gina, there's people out there who this is exactly what they need. They need to hear it from somebody like him, and I'm so glad he's using um, his platform to do this. It's so
Mhm.
incredible, and I'm so thankful.
Me too.
So thank you so much, Gina. Do you have any closing thoughts before we sign off tonight?
Just to the new homeschool mom, I would say welcome to the family, and we would love nothing more than to help you and there are so many other families that are standing by also wanting to help you. And the neat thing about the homeschool community is that it's a very kind community, especially the Christian homeschool community. Find a good church that meets, that opens their doors to homeschoolers. There's a lot of them now, and perhaps your own church has something. Ask your pastor, talk to people in your church, find out, hey, where do the homeschoolers around here meet? Because I'm interested and I'm looking to possibly do it. And I will tell you, you will have so many invites. You will have a lot of warmth coming your way. So don't hesitate and step out of that comfort zone and make some friends and get started. Now is the time. Don't spend another day in those indoctrination centers. Bring them home where they belong.
Mm. Thank you so much, Gina. I appreciate your time. Thank you for sharing everything with us tonight. I just want to let our viewers know that we have a summer sale that just started, and we're really focusing on our teens right now. We know that there are a lot of you who you're entering the high school years, you're not really sure where to start, and we have an incredible discount for you. We have some new exciting materials over at schoolhouseteachers.com. If when you join, you go to the member dashboard and you'll see some great resources for you. And if you join us, you'll get our newsletter and you'll hear about all these awesome opportunities for high schoolers that are coming up. So um, head over to schoolhouseteachers.com if you're interested in joining, and we will see you next time on another evening with Gina.